Okay, hi. You know what I love? One of the things I love most about being here, of the 10,000 million things I love, is the fragrance on a night like this. The fragrance of wood burning and the smell of the rain and the smell of the earth. Oh my God, I love it. So I'm just going to leave and walk around. I absolutely love it. What I thought I would do this evening as an intro into the soul is discuss the two people whose work we're going to focus a bit on, and that's the mystics, Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross, and what the nature of mysticism is about, what the mystical experience is, what makes a mystic, what a mystical calling is, what it means to be called, what this part of your life is all about, how that changes your life. How we're going to fit that into an hour is a challenge, but this is where I want to take us this evening. In the morning, we'll start the journey into the graces and the shadow. What I'm going to ask you to do this evening when you go back is to give some thought to something. And that's that what makes the journey into your graces, your soul, and your shadow passions a very rich transformational journey is that you weave it into something in you that genuinely is calling for transformation. That there is some part of you that you are struggling with, that you want to take on, that you actually want to take on. And by this, I mean some part of you that you really want to take on. Maybe it's time you retired a part of you that simply won't grow up. And you need to take that part on. And you need to say to your wounded child, that's enough. That's enough. That is enough. It's okay to cough. I promise you. Okay. Maybe you need to say, when a wounded child in you gets to the point where it's wounding you as an adult, you need to look at that archetype and you need to say, that's enough. It's one thing to recognize that you have had wounds as a child, but as an adult, when you are being wounded by your wounded child, you need to stop. And you need to look at that. And you need to recognize, I am self-inflicting wounds upon myself. This is not what you call healing. This is self-inflicted injuries. And there's a real good chance you are injuring others under the guise of healing. And you are not, in fact, healing anybody. You are passing on your pain to other people, and you are thinking that you have every right to do that. Are you with me here? So when you look at something within yourself that you feel, I need to take on, I need to finally put this to rest, it could be that. It could be a part of you that fears becoming forgiving. And you finally say to yourself, that's it. I'm going to forgive this incident or this person in my life. And that's it. I will not, I cannot anymore be bitter. This bitterness is so foul in my mouth. I speak bitterly. Life tastes bitter to me. I cannot be bitter anymore. It is my own heart that is bitter. And I can't, it's poisoning me. I have to take that part and deal with it. I can tell myself I have a reason to not be forgiven, not be forgiving. But I'm lying to myself. The real reason is I am vengeful. And I want to taste vengeance. And that's why this is bitter. And I need to own that. I am vengeful. And it is nothing more than that. I want to hurt them. And that is what is true. And I will articulate that. And that is what is true. That's the only reason people don't forgive. There is no other reason. It is not because they need more therapy. It's because in therapy they haven't said the accurate thing. I want to hurt them. Period. Done. And they don't care that I want to hurt them. Period. Done. Are we in agreement here? Yes. Unfortunately, most people don't go into their therapist and own that. They make up things so it looks like they're innocent, and they never own their vengeance. What a pity. I could have saved you 10 years if you'd come to me first. I have no problem with the dark side. None whatsoever. So what I'm going to suggest is you take a look at something deep and true in you that you really, really, really want to take on. Okay. So let's talk about these wondrous, wondrous beings called mystics. Because it's from their work that we get what we are going to do, which is our work. Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross. How I got to do this work, where I came from in this work. Teresa and John were literally soulmates, mates of each other's soul. When Teresa was 52 years old, she was, I don't know how much you know about Teresa of Avila, but I now know her intimately. She was a Spanish Carmelite nun. She lived in the 1500s. She, in Avila, Spain. When she was 52 years old, Teresa met John of the Cross, who was then 25. Also a Carmelite. He was about that tall. He was very little. And he was a mystic, as she was. Now, what is a mystic? That's an extraordinary thing to be called. You're a mystic. You know, a mystic is someone who perceives life through their soul first, and then sees where they are. A mystic is somebody who has found a deep inner gate and has managed somehow to find a passage through that. Teresa, to find the interior castle, to get through that castle, to get through into the castle, and to look at the other people around her and say, this journey, this yearning you're on, this mysterious disruption you always feel, this discontentment that no matter what you get, no matter who you're with, no matter how much you love, you still wake up in the morning just a little bit discontent. That there is a way to find a contentment for that. But it's not physical. It's a deep interior finding that in fact your life is not in vain. That there is a source greater than you that knows you're alive and to whom you are significant. that beyond your capacity to understand how this can be true, it is true. That if I took you out of your body and took you by the hand and said, come with me, I want to show you something. And we flew to the heavens, and I said, look, there's Andromedan, and there's the Sombrero Galaxy, and here's the Milky Way where you live. And there are 200 billion other galaxies, and beyond that, maybe billions of others. And within each of those galaxies, there are 200 billion solar systems that have planets. And who knows how many civilizations. And somehow or other, you are important to this system in ways you can't comprehend. I can't comprehend it. And yet, somehow, this system, this divine system, knows you by name. You will never comprehend that. But what a mystical experience is a second's comprehension of that. Is you are taken and shown, given a second's comprehension of what I've just described. Teresa of Avila had that experience. And when she came back, she would have these experiences, and sometimes her body would go into this stiffness. And she would completely go unconscious. It would look like a seizure or something. And the nuns would say, where did you go? Where did you go? And she would say, my mind wanted to go with me. My eyes wanted to go with me. But they could not make the journey. They could not make the journey. Because there is a place, there is a dimension where we have to leave behind our vocabulary. Even the Psalms, the psalmists, those who wrote the Psalms, finally said, I can't talk to you literally. I have to turn to metaphor. I have to turn to poetry. I have to write in song. I can no longer speak to you. I have to write in praise. I can't. I'm at a loss now. I'm at a loss. In a simple way to draw a comparison, sometimes where love poetry comes from is that people will have discovered that when they go into that la-la stage of love, before the lo-lo, the la-la stage, they find that saying to someone, I really love you, falls flat. No, I mean it. I love you. All right, let me try it again. I love you is not communicating. That they need a Robert Browning, how do I love you? Let me count the ways. I love you to the breadth and depth of my being. Well, that sounds a little better. Now I'm beginning to believe you. Okay? What else you got? Got anything in a sonnet? Okay. So there is something about the magical metaphor that calls your attention, that says, wait a minute, okay, where are we going here? Because you're speaking to me in another dimension. You must be experiencing in another dimension, or you couldn't write that. You couldn't write that. You can't put those words together unless your heart has visited that place. You couldn't say that unless you've been there. I was an editor for a long, long time. And you develop a sense, and I don't know what you do for a living, but whatever it is you do for a living, I'm sure this is as true for you as it is for me. If you're teachers, if you're mothers, if you're astronauts, whatever it is you do, you develop a sixth sense for authenticity within your profession and your art. You know if you're a teacher when a student is lying to you. Agreed? If you're teachers, do I have teachers here? You know if I've had police officers say to me, or detectives tell me, I develop a sense. I know when someone is lying to me. Okay? And the same thing is true, for example, when I read a manuscript. And somebody says, I experienced this, and they start writing about their, quote, personal experiences. You can tell, I can tell, by the choice of vocabulary that they use, whether they are BSing me or whether they've actually experienced it. I can tell by that you can't kid me. I mean, you could try and maybe you'll pull it off, but it will take a lot of effort because your personal experience is so rich that you will struggle until you found the right word. And struggle shows up in literature. It shows up. It shows up in the exquisite way you will fight to construct one sentence. And I can tell if a sentence has been fought and beaten and battled. And if you sweat to write one sentence, or if you've just knocked it off and thought, what will they like to hear? That looks like cheap trash, and it reads it. And I can tell this person hasn't experienced 1 minute of this. And that goes because it deserves it. But someone who's really experienced a struggle, who really knows the dark night of the soul, who's really been shattered spiritually, and then felt some light pick them up, who's really been crushed like grapes and smashed, and then feels themselves becoming fine wine. You can't fake that. You can't fake a resurrection. And you can't write about one authentically unless you've had one. Nobody can fake a mystical experience. I can hear it in the words, I can read it in your writing, I can see it in your eyes. Anyone can who's had one. It's just the way it is. Now, Teresa of Avila, when she wrote her beautiful perfection, The Interior Castle, which is about the journey into the soul. And she said, the soul is like a crystal with 7 mansions, 7 chakras. She saw them. She saw them in a dazzling, brilliant light. And she said, each one of these crystals, each one of these mansions represents an ever-increasing depth of self-knowledge that a human being has to pursue in order for that human being to know themselves. This is how you get into your soul. So we're going to talk about the mansions. We're going to talk about the mansions as we talk about the graces. And I'm going to add one of the mystical laws of the universe to each one. So you understand something that's really, 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 really important. What is the nature of God? What is the nature of God? How do you understand God as we go into this? How should you understand God? Religion is fairy tale. Let us put it out there. Religion is fairy tale and it is nonsense. It's necessary, but it's nonsense. But it has a place. It has a place because God is power. What kind of power is the divine? The divine is law. The divine is law, period. Law and order. Look at the universe you live in. How do you know God? You know God by knowing law. What kind of law? Mystical law. The divine is law. The law of sensation, the law of vibration, the law of action and reaction. I have a thought. The thought generates an action, and it has a reaction. It's a law. Heaven does not care who I am, what religion I am, how tall I am, how old I am, how smart I am, how not I am. I am held accountable for the law. You learn the law, period. There is no exception. If that is the law, I don't take a day off. I don't take an hour off. I don't take a minute off. I take nothing off. I learn the law. I don't use the law only when I'm sick. This is why people don't heal. They don't heal because they only apply the laws when they're sick. And then they turn off and they decide, oh, well, law is hobby. No, law is God. Law is constant. Gravity is law. Do you float when you're not sick? No, gravity is consistent. What is gravity? Gravity is gravis. What is gravis? Gravis is Latin. Latin for weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, weight, heavy. Newton said this is the law of weight. Weight. He chose the word gravis because gravis means serious, to give weight to. You perceive the world. What you target, you give weight to, as you'll learn tomorrow. What you target, you give weight to. What you give weight to leaves your body and your frame. You give weight to it. You give weight. Someone says something to you, and you attach to the spectacle of what they say. You attach to a problem. You attach to a spectacle. You give weight to it. You forget, this won't be here in 1 second. I should let the spectacle of this just pass me by. What am I thinking? But you can't control yourself yet. You have no power over yourself yet. You should command yourself, be still. Let nothing disturb me. Be still. Pull yourself in your castle. But you haven't enough discipline yet. You get rattled because someone says something to you in the wrong tone of voice. You can't manage your ego yet. You're so high-strung. You're so high-strung, you think you should be spoken to in a certain tone of voice. Poor tender you. So you attach yourself to a certain tone of voice, wrong octave for you. Poor tone, poor delicate you. Poor delicate you. Wrong octave. That delicacy will cause you cancer. Because you're so delicate. You require a certain octave. When you get your cancer, you go in and you tell the doctor, I'm sick because I'm too delicate, and my ego requires a certain octave. People don't speak to me in the right octave, so I react. My ego is too hypersensitive. And I need to be spoken to. I'm entitled to be spoken to in a certain way. This is the source of your disease. Entitlement. Let's be real clear here. Let's be real clear. At the end of the day, that's what broke you into fragments. Are you with me here? This is hardball. Okay, we're playing hardball here. You want to learn how to play at this altitude, this is what it looks like. If you really, really want to get to know your power, this is what it looks like. It's consistent, it's intense, and out of it comes a whole you. Out of it comes a whole you. So that when you say to yourself, don't you dare attach to that spectacle, every part of you pulls in, and you stay whole and you stay centered. You stay whole and you stay centered. You see a fear, someone says to you, oh no, the sky is falling, Chicken Little. It's frightening out there. You stay whole and you stay centered. You hear inner guidance, you bow your head and you say, God, what do you want me to do? And you hear guidance and you do not react by saying, what will they think? You close your eyes and you say, that's what you want, and you do it. You do it because this comes first. This world comes first over that world. Soul before matter, not them before you. This is transformation. Are you following me? Okay, this is a tough thing. This is a very difficult transformation. This is a long process you're on. It's a challenging one, but it's the only one that matters. It's the only one that matters. Muktananda said to his disciples, this is a path that you're better off never taking. But if you start, you're better off never getting off. Okay? So this is tough work, but it's the only work. It's the only work. When Teresa started, she joined the convent as a young girl. And she was in La La Land and just kind of goofing off and praying, goofing off for a long time. Then one day, she had what's called a conversion experience. And that is something that, in a sense, all of you are afraid of. So I'm going to describe it. I'm going to describe it because it is an experience that I believe human beings are terrified of, which is why they stay in conflict with their spiritual life. A conversion experience is when your whole sensory system becomes animated within the body of one of your beliefs. So that instead of you mentally perceiving something, you become the something you're perceiving. That's the best way I can say it. So let's say it this way. There are many people that I've met that do wonderful work with poverty, with animal suffering, like PETA, the PETA group, or with nature. But the truth is, a person, for all the sensitivity they have with animals and with nature, our first sentiment with animals and with nature is pity. We're drawn into it because we feel sorry for them. I'm not saying that's not a legitimate emotion. Please hear me clearly. But the first magnet that draws us to that world is a sense of, oh my God, I've got to do something. Don't forget your question, Holly, is a sense of pity. It's not a sense of, oh my God, I feel what these animals are feeling. I feel their fear. I feel their vulnerability. I feel their pain. I feel their abuse. Oh my God, I am one of them. This is not the experience they have. Such an experience, were someone to have that experience, would be called a conversion experience, where you are converted to the realm of the object you are serving. In Teresa's case, she lived at the time, well, this is still the case, but not as wretched, when they used to have statues, they still do, but maybe not quite as horrid, of the scourging of Jesus, in the convents. I mean, they were really into this. And you kind of get used to seeing it. It's kind of like, hi there, when you walk past. Except this one day, as she looked at this statue with this headgear on and the blood all over the place, what happened to her was that the whole archetypal journey of the Christ not the bleeding Jesus, but the whole Christos, the whole cosmic journey of what this man was putting in place for all humanity, for the rest of all time, and why he had to go through that, crashed into her soul. And she fell on the floor. And she just lay there for hours. Because suddenly, this wasn't Jesus, the suffering Son of God, martyr. That doesn't make any sense to most people. It doesn't make any sense. This Roman mythology that the Christians borrowed of some off-planet God mating with an earth virgin doesn't make any sense at all. And then a sacrifice that's almost vampiric. Eat my body, drink blood. Excuse me? At the literal level, it doesn't make any sense. At the mystical level, where you get past the literal mind, and the literal mind goes, boom, get out of my way. And the truth grabs your soul and says, come here, and throws you like a loose scholar into the cosmos and says, you want to see what really this is about? Come with me. And throws you into a mystical cosmos where you understand that the Christos came down to shatter a small little segment of how humanity understood vengeance, suffering, the limited notion of earth law, of why the human beings only understand eye for an eye justice, to give them an alternative, everything, that the suffering was not about a human being and God. It was about this template of why we cause each other suffering. This idea that I have a right to make you suffer if you make me suffer. And he finally said, well, let me give you an alternative. I'll take your pain on my shoulder. Let me show you how to do this. You look at your brother and you say, you know what? We can do this forever, you and I. Or I can decide that your pain is the same as my pain, and this is going to go on, and that what you're actually showing me is how vengeful I am. Like I'm showing you how vengeful you are. So what I'm going to do is I am going to keep your pain. And I'm going to carry it on my back as a cross. And I am going to figure out a way to love us both out of this. I'm going to turn the other cheek. Yes, I am. I'm going to put myself on the cross. And I'm going to figure out a way to love us both through this. It's not going to make any sense. But what I'm actually going to do is destroy the hatred that this has woken up in me. Because if I can do this to you, I assure you I can do this to anyone. And that's what you've made me realize, is I have it in me to hate as much as you have it in you. What you've woken up in me is my own hatred. I look at you, and what I see is how much I hate, how much I have. I can justify it. I can say this is you, but it's not. It's me. It's me. I have what it takes to be self-righteous, to be hateful, to be condemning. This is about me. So I'm going to just back off. I'm backing off now. And I'm shutting the door because it's not about you. Because what I have to realize is whether it's you or someone else, I have long fangs. So I'm just going to go sit away for a while and pray that I can figure out a way to stop hating so much. Because this is about me and hatred. Me and how I can fuel that and feel good about it. And how, in fact, I feel better hating than loving and I got to own that. How instead of going to therapy to say, I have so much love, I don't know what to do with it, I go and say, I pay money to stay in hatred. I pay money to stay in hatred. Do you know how much my hatred costs me? How much does your hatred cost you? Thousands of dollars to stay in hatred. Not love, but hatred. Just think about that. How much has your hatred cost you? Astounding. And what this is about is finally saying, I need to pray my way through this. This is not good. This is where grace comes in, because you can't get out of this through your mind. Because your mind will keep telling you, you have every right, every right, every right, every right. And that's where Jesus said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will go through every single reason why you have every right. I'll be betrayed. I'll be shattered. I'll be humiliated. I'll go through every single thing you claim you get to do that gives you permission to be hateful. I'll do it all for you. And in the end, I'll even do this. I'll even get on my knees and say, do I have to do this? Because this sucks. And still I will not get any answer. And I'll have to do this whole thing in blind trust. And still, I'll have to just accept there must be a reason why this happened. And I won't be told it. So that's going to be part of your gig. You don't get to know why the worst thing that happens to you happens. You remember that. You don't get to know. So who do you think you are? As the first line of Job, where were you when I laid the firmament for this world? Where were you when I laid the foundation for this world? I don't remember seeing you. Let me check my notes. You don't get to know. And so Jesus goes through all of this. And then he says, so then I'll tell you what I'll do. Then I will hang on the cross. And then even then, I will illustrate betrayal. Where are you, God? Like I pulled off everything. And this is just so miserable. And then he says, I forgot one thing. Forgive them. This is all necessary. Everybody is part of everybody's drama exactly as it should be. And with that, empowered by that, he said, I can now free myself. I'm out of here. This is what mysticism is. It's the recognition of the pieces of your life. They're not an error. They're not a mistake. That to live your life thinking something's wrong here. That's the mistake. To live your life thinking everything's right, everything's as it should be. I need to make choices with great clarity. That's where you come in through mystical sight. What am I not seeing? What am I not understanding? What do I need to see better? Because I can tell you, the universe has not put you in the wrong place. The universe did not screw up. Now, your interpretation of things, that's what needs the elevation. Okay, you with me here? Okay? It's a lot of work. Teresa's contribution is magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. One of the many thousands and millions of things that I love about Teresa is in her 7 mansions. The first 3 are the lower work, as you'll see with the graces and the shadow passion. when you get to the fourth mansion, when we get to the fourth grace, the fourth mansion for her was a place that she said, you don't get there without God's invitation. She said, God comes for you when it's the fourth mansion. She said, you can't get in there without God. God comes for you when it comes to the heart. And one of the most famous statue of Teresa Bernini's, where she's lying on her back and there's an angel that comes shooting an arrow. And I think many of you could have, did any of you see that horrid movie, Angels and Demons? See that terrible movie? Teresa's statue was in there, Bernini's statue, with that arrow of Teresa. It's called The Ecstasy of Teresa. It's actually very sexy. And Teresa wrote about that experience that statue is referring to. Is she writes about in the sixth mansion in Interior Castle. When she says, an angel visited me today, but I don't know from which realm that angel came because the angel didn't say. She saw angels all the time. Now here's something that is so rich to understand about Teresa, John of the Cross. These were two of the greatest mystics who lived at a time that the great age of mysticism was coming to an end, and the age of reason was beginning. And the thing that's so significant about this is that these people lived at a time when the soul was ever present versus the mind. These people lived at a time when everything about them was the presence of the soul and the presence of God and the presence of the divine world in the physical. It was not separate. It was everywhere. It was everywhere around them. The holy was next door, around them, up, down, below them. When they walked into the forest, they were aware that the forest was looking at them just as they were looking at it. They breathed one with God. This is not how we live now. Now we live with this notion that in order to be in nature, we have to go way out in the forest. That we have no notion that nature's in the city. We're in the city. There's no nature here. What are you talking about? This is much nature as it is in the forest. It's just a different type. It's our vanity and our arrogance that says the city is not nature. Of course it's nature. It's a different type of nature. The whole world is nature. It just changes. But Teresa and John lived at this time when everything around them was the soul and the perception. And then we became people who decided to reason, who fell in love with our capacity to reason. And this is going to be your greatest handicap, is that we were raised in a world in which reasoning your way through everything and with everything has become your primary compass in life and your primary compass with God. You reason everything. You talk like this. Well, there must be a reason why these things happen. You have a God in you, a mythic creature that you believe reasons the way you do, but times 100. If you're loving, God must be really loving. You think like this. If you're saved from an accident, there must be a reason. And the reason must be benevolent. If you do something that is suffering, you expect a reward from God. Suffering for you equals reward. Why? Because there must be a reason why you suffered. And that suffering has to pay off in some kind of reward, because that's the way life works. You're rewarded. And what does a reward look like? Well, it's got to be money. It's got to be life made easy. It's got to be no problems. It's got to be a clear passage, but it's got to be a reward. And this is how you think. And that's the way God is. You got to understand, God is law. Simply law. And that's it. God is the law of vibration, sensation, cause and effect, gravity. You give something weight, it has weight. You take the weight away, it goes away. You give something weight, it clings to you. You cut the strings, it goes away. There's cause and effect, there's karma. What goes around comes around. What is in one is in the whole. That's the way it is. The universe is a system of law. The order of planets, the order of the universe, this is the expression of the divine. That is it. What makes the cosmic laws different than their counter-expression in science is that the cosmic laws are conscious. They are conscious. They have a consciousness to them. And beyond that, they yield to those who have faith and prayer. What is a miracle? A miracle happens when the laws of the universe are negotiated on your behalf. And that comes through faith and prayer. Prayer is the negotiating tool in the universe. Prayer is how God knows you intimately. So regardless of how coordinating the mystical laws are, the intimacy is known through prayer. So the universe is two things. It is completely impersonal, and that is why you must learn it impersonally. Impersonally. It is as it is. It is impersonal legal. That is how you learn the healing laws. The laws are as they are. This is why you made yourself sick. This is how you get better. It's the law. I don't want to hear about your emotions. What you need to know is what your emotions are doing to you. I don't care about the reason. What you need to know is the cause and effect of it. That's all you need to know. I'm here to teach you the cause and effect. You want to tell me the reason? Fine, but this is the cause and effect. What you also need to know is the power of prayer. And put the two together, you have a divinely loving, intimate God combined with law. Intimacy and impersonal. And that's the structure of heaven. That's the structure. That's it. Regardless of religion, I have no use for any of those. None whatsoever. However, I refer to the mystical tradition in all of them. When it comes to the nonsense paperwork of the religion, I throw them all in the garbage. Do we understand each other?